7:05?
Yeah.
All right. I will recuse myself as I am in the used car business. So we have, turn it over to Mr. Simon.
Yeah, thank you. So we'd like to open the hearing for a Class 2 license application under Mass General. Please be advised that under the provision of Chapter 140 of the Mass General Law, the Board of Selectmen will be reviewing the application of Next Stop Automotive LLC, who is requesting a Class 2 license at 138C Milford Street in Upton. And we're going to review this application this evening. Is there anybody here from Next Stop Automotive? Okay, please come on up to the front.
Good evening.
Good evening. So tell us what you're trying to do or what you're here for.
We're looking to obtain a used car license, secondhand sales license for 25 cars at 138 Milford Street, as well as operate a repair facility there as well.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been at that site?
Since June
Since June of...
2019.
Oh, okay, so just got there.
Yes.
Got it. And so have you guys been operating a business there since June or?
No, we have not been buying or selling cars since this time.
Okay, so you're trying to start a new business there?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. Do you have questions? I know that we have somebody here from the audience as well that wants to speak.
Yes,
So.
I'd like to hear them.
Okay, great. Is there anyone in the audience that has any comments?
Yeah, my name's Tim Cornu, I'm a property owner, and these gentlemen have not paid the first or second month's rent, and they've been sent a letter to
Okay,
all right?
thank you.
To respond to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we gave this guy 3 months up front to move into this building. He promised us a dealer's license that he had owned to transfer to us, and it was going to be a 1 week, 2 week process. He sent us here with his wife. That's not what happened. Before I signed the lease for this building, I came here 4 times and spoke to the clerk. She explained that this is not how it happens. You have to go in front of the ZBA and then you guys. He told me, no, don't worry about it, and he took our money. When I asked him about this after the ZBA meeting, he told us, okay, you guys are all set. Go pay $200. Go to the town clerk tomorrow, and you'll be all set. You have your dealer's license, you'll be able to operate in business. This was in July. That's not what happened. I went downstairs to the town clerk the next morning, and she told me I had to come to this meeting. I asked him about this, and he came here that following Friday. I believe it was Wednesday, the meeting. Thursday, I came here. I called him Thursday night and explained the problems that I was having. Friday, he came here. They told him exactly what they told me. He called me on the phone, flipping out, so I wrote him an email explaining our problems, explaining that he does not even own the license that he leased this building with. So it's like, I feel like he tricked us into signing this lease because he did not even own the license. He was not even the owner of Western Motors. So I explained everything in the email that his wife gave us. I emailed it to him. He never responded. He came the following day, that Friday, took a picture of the lot, because I have agreement of 7 cars along the fence. They were not along the fence. They were along the back line. That is the only complaint he can make, that the car was not along on the fence.
And he advertised the property to come with the dealer's license.
Yeah, that was the whole reason why we overpaid for
Because we
this
had another
place.
location to go to. The only reason we chose his, because it was a quick process. We didn't want to wait the 2 months, and he promised us that it was a quick, and you could ask the secretary downstairs, that we came here numerous times with his wife, with him,
Even his
to-
wife. She
even
asked
his
us
wife,
how
to
we're
switch
going to
it
pay
over.
rent.
and he didn't, come up with his agreement, and now he wants us to pay. But how can we pay if we have no money, we have no cost to sell? So we held the 2 months until we get the dealer's license to pay him so we could start at this month when we get the license. We don't have no problem paying him, and the thing is, we wanted to talk to him to explain the situation. He didn't give us a chance to,
They did not respond to the email. When we called him on the phone, he cursed me out. He was acting like kind of not professional, so I resorted to email. He never emailed us back. I know that's his wife and his email because that's what she sent me like 2 weeks prior. This is Tim and Rose's email. So I figured, because I don't want to, call him, I will send an email listing all the problems, which we did this Friday, the same Friday. He never responded, he never came by, he never called me, never nothing. I never told him I was not going to pay him that Friday. I asked him, what are we going to do now that I know you do not own Western Motors, you cannot transfer a license, it's been proven you cannot transfer a license, so what is the next step? Soon I asked him that is when he started flipping out, cursing, being unprofessional. I'm just trying to run a business. Not me, but George. I'm speaking on behalf of Next Stop. We're trying to operate a business. The main income for this business is to buy and sell cars. If I cannot buy and sell cars, I cannot pay $2,500 a month rent, especially when I give you first, last, and security deposit $2,500. So I'm already roughly $8,000 in the hole already, right? So how can he expect me to give him the next check so willingly, with no questions? That's our concern. We never told him we was not going to pay him. He just never called us back or emailed us back. I have the email to show you guys, and I did everything on our end. He promised us when we signed this lease, we will help you with the process. I will send my wife or myself. We're very known in town. Yada, yada, yada. Everything good to sign the lease. And from what I've heard, it's not the first time he did this type of stuff. I don't know him as a person, so I cannot attest to that. But if you rent a property that's listed online, used cars, dealer license already included, that is transferable, you figure it to be transferable, right? You go, it's probably 1-2 week process, but we're not transferring Western Motors license to us. We're getting a new dealer's license at this location. So what is he transferring to us? What's all these promises he made us? I don't see nothing. I see a building. I see problems that I took care of. I see the lights that I spent money on. I see the signs that I spent money on. I see everything, the business cards, the shirts, the promotions, everything to be sitting for 2 months not making no money. What am I supposed to do? And when I ask the landlord, what is the next step? You flip out on me and then you want me to give you a check? I can give the guy a check. I have no problem, but help me. Tell me what's the next step. What can I do?
Sounds like you might need a court of law, and we're
Yeah.
not that.
Yeah.
No, we know that already.
Yeah.
What are the requirements that we have to renew a Class 2? Do you know, have you done these before?
Right, it has to be able to be transferred, but they don't own the building,
Right,
and that's where the problem is.
right. So the applicants,
They've received all their permits from the ZBA. They've gone before. I have the notice right here, the approval from the ZBA.
right,
So they've received all the approvals from the ZBA. So at this point,
it's just an approval that we have to do.
we have to give them
Right.
approval.
Doesn't have anything to do with their relationship with the owner, that's not our business, right?
They've passed their background checks. They've been approved by other authorities, and so.
So they've met all the requirements
Met
for
all
the
of our
class, for
requirements.
the Class 2 application. Great.
Excuse me, I just need to see the copy of the
Bond?
certificate of insurance?
Yes.
Right, which I know that you're gonna bring with you. That was the only thing outstanding, but they said they'd bring it with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Is there anything else we need, Sandy, from your perspective?
They've met all of our needs.
Okay,
Right, and
okay, great.
I think it's something that they're gonna have to work out with the owner.
Totally.
Yep. But, they're entitled, if they've been through the process, they're entitled to the Class 2 license.
they've completed our process.
Yep,
I would agree. So I would say we
yeah,
issue the license. My opinion. Agree?
agree.
Okay, then we'll do that. I make a motion that we issue a Class 2 license for Next Stop Automotive operating out of 138C Milford Street in Upton.
I'll second.
Great. Majority action. Thank you.
Thank you,
Good luck.
guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, take care.
I'll have the license for you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay,
I'll see you
stop
tomorrow.
by.
Thank you.
I'll go grab
But you can sign it then now. Do you have a moment?
What's that?
You can sign the license now,
Yeah,
since you have a moment. I won't forget.
Welcome back, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
We are
Sounded like There was a
good.
lot of activity there.
Yes. It's an easy one for us, fortunately. It's the way we like it.
All right. Okay, so we are on to Trust Fund Commissioner Joint Election. So we have an opening on this board. We have a representative here, Mr. Jim Brochu, who is currently on that board, or that committee, I should say.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Brochu.
My fellow member, other member, I don't believe could make it tonight, so I represent the Board of Commissioners of Trust Funds.
Okay. This, again, is a joint election. It'll be between the four of us. It's a roll call vote. Was there any discussion at your last meeting? As far as, did you have a candidate that you wanted?
There was not at the last meeting. Again, as the board is, I believe, fully aware, Jeannie Oliver submitted her resignation. And again, we accepted it with thanks for her dedicated service. And we sent a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying that the Trust Fund Commission has accepted her resignation, and we make a request that it be posted. It was posted as such, and also requested that we be part, since it is an elected position on that board, and there is an opening now, that we requested a meeting here tonight to do a joint election. So, and it is my understanding that there are two candidates that did submit interest in that position.
Yes, we had two applications, Robert Fleming and Alan Rosenfield.
Yes.
Are the two applicants. So, any discussion amongst fellow board members?
Are either Mr. Fleming or Mr. Rosenfeld here?
They're not. So, Mr. Chairman, are you opening up nominations, or are you opening up?
Where this calls for a roll call vote, I'm not sure if we should open for nominations or if we should ask for votes. Do you have a suggestion, Derek?
This is a roll call vote. We can just ask for votes.
Okay.
We have two candidates.
Yep.
Or do you,
Two
would,
candidates?
through you, Mr. Chairman, would we make a motion to accept one of the candidates, or just, I mean, how, it's, how best would you?
Well, I guess I will ask the question to you. Do you have a recommendation?
I would recommend Robert Fleming. I would, for the position of Board of Commissioners of Trust Fund. And again, both are great candidates. Both, I know Alan and Bob personally, and they both served on the Board of Selectmen, and they both are outstanding candidates. And I thank them both for their interest. And with that said, I would make a motion to nominate Bob Fleming for the position.
I would second that.
Do we have the other commissioners' support, or what is his perspective?
He was advised about tonight's meeting at the last meeting, and again, for some reason, he is unable to attend tonight, so.
Okay.
But again, I cannot speak for him, but
Yeah.
I do know he also knows, both,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did read through both applications. Looks like Mr. Fleming served on that commission before, almost 10 years on that committee, or commission, I should say. Thought I saw that.
I don't know.
So, do you?
Anyway, that'd be my motion.
Okay. Again, I thought when I read the law, I thought it was roll call vote, so I guess I would ask, what is your vote, Mr. Simons?
Bob Fleming.
Okay. Ms. Tornell?
Awesome.
Okay. And Steve Metallion, Bob Fleming?
And Jim Brochu, Bob Fleming.
Okay. So that is unanimous. Bob Fleming is the newest member to the Trust Fund Commission.
And again, with that said, I want to thank Alan for also submitting his application for this, and I hope that he continues to show his support on serving on some committees as needed, because again, he is a valuable asset.
Yeah. Yes, I know over the years he served on numerous, both
Absolutely.
candidates had a long list of accomplishments and a long list, it's really more contributions to the town
Absolutely.
by both candidates, so it's always tough when you have to choose one over the other. But I echo your thoughts.
Yep.
Thank you to
Thank
Alan
you.
Rosenfield as well.
Thank you.
So,
I think we're all set.
okay.
Thank you, thank you all very much. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay. Next is item 4.3 on the agenda, Recreation Master Plan Presentation. I think we have a couple of members of the RecCom and Andrew St. George. Good evening, folks.
Good evening. So, thank you for squeezing us into a very busy meeting. We have a nice video and everything, but I have been advised that the system cannot play audio. So, yeah. So, are we able to? Okay. Well, if we can try and start the video, I've listened to this thing probably 60 times today, so I can try to just narrate it as it goes, and hopefully when we've started it just works.
Now, on the website, I think there's, did you print out any handouts by any chance?
I did not.
Okay.
It's the 46-page master plan that you submitted, correct?
Yes, and after tonight, this is sort of our public unveiling of it. So after tonight, we'll have it up on our website and have the video. We'll make it available.
Okay.
While he's getting that there, just so you know, this is just a very initial look at it. This is us looking at the master plan and sort of saying, here's the general direction we want to take. This is not asking for money. Here's exactly what's happening in the next whatever period. This is just to let you kind of see where the plan has, where we are once we've got the plan in now. So just want to keep you in part of the process.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think it's an important point to make and for people to understand that the whole master planning process, right, whether it's for the town, whether it's for RecCom or any other part of the town, it's a process that creates a vision, it creates a roadmap, it creates a sense of ideas and opportunities and potential proposals, right? A master plan in and of itself isn't even an actual proposal. It's simply a body of research that aggregated data, put it together, looked at opportunities and said, given all of the possibilities, what could we do with various areas that we have in terms of development? The process of determining what, if anything, we want to put a proposal together or do you want to recommend as a next step, that's a separate conversation. So I think that's a great point, Andy, to just make sure that folks understand we're not proposing to spend any money, we're simply reviewing information to make decisions in the future.
Correct.
Thank you. He's looking, I see him looking at the laptop, he's clicking.
I know my propensity to talk too much, so I thought, hey, I'll narrate it. I'll make a 5-minute video. It's done, and we're set.
Right.
Although at this point, I probably could run you through it quickly, and then again after tonight, I'll put this video up on our website and our Facebook page, so you can refer to the video on your own.
Did we put the video on the Upton site as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll put it on the town website, so on your site, but also we'll put it on the
Andrew,
town site.
What I put on the website, on the agenda, what you sent me, is that what you're speaking of? Because it's on the website right now.
Right. So the what I had
video
sent
or
you.
I think she's talking about a video.
Yeah. So this right here, which is what I had sent through the packet, is essentially what the narration to the video is. So this is the information that the video contains. The video is just
You sent me a PowerPoint too.
Yes, we have the master plan report.
right, a PDF.
46-page PDF. So we
I-
have that, we're looking at that.
Yes.
There's a 5-minute video summary that we're working on. And if we can't get that, you can just,
Well, what we could do actually is we could move on to the next topic and come back if we think that we're going to have the video ready in 5-10 minutes.
I bring in the video on that? I mean.
That's why I was asking.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
All right.
It was working at 6:30.
okay.
So how about I just I can just verbally go through this. Theirs is going to be much more in-depth, so if they want to work on getting their PowerPoint working, I'll just verbally go through this.
Sure.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
So basically, the driving force to doing this master plan was a combination of the ADA compliance issues down at Kiwanis Beach, but then coupled with the donation of the Trask property. So all of a sudden, we don't just have one area we're working on, we have a whole nother area to look at. So as, we were here obviously asking for support for the master plan. So all of that holds true in that it's the most cost-effective way for us to determine what to do with our properties, with the idea of being fiscally responsible with those facilities. And it's a better way of getting the public involved than just reaching out as a recreation commission or as a board of selectmen and asking what people want, having an agency do this. So after public meetings, they identified several things that people wanted to see, and these were not site-specific things. These were just things people wanted in town, and we could basically put them where they were, most advantageous. Full-size rectangular field with lighting, so that would be soccer, football, field hockey, any field that uses that rectangular shape with lighting. I believe that artificial turf was the preferred, but the big thing was this physical field. There was a lot of concern about making sure there's adequate parking for all new facilities. There's a call for Cal Ripken-sized baseball fields or larger. That's where the baseball program has a lot of I think they're actually getting older kids joining baseball right now, so that's where the need is. There was a lot of call for passive recreation areas near those active locations. So if you're at a soccer field, having a small playground type of, single structure playground for the kids who aren't on the sport for families, or picnic areas. More tennis courts, more pickleball courts. There was call for more playgrounds spread among the facilities we currently have. More walking trails, again, specifically at the site of recreational facilities. People want to be at this facility and go for a walk. They don't want to, they don't exclusively want to have to go to an open space trail to go for a walk. They want it to be part of what they're already there for. Obviously, full handicap accessibility at all facilities, which would obviously be the ideal here. And then there was also a lot of a call for a hockey or ice rink, which we had in the past in the field behind Memorial. And so there are people looking to bring that back. So again, these can happen in really any one of our locations.
Excuse me just a minute, will you be talking about a seasonal rink, something that you just kind of
Yeah.
fill
You
with
flood
water?
the basketball court or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or a tennis court. Or
Not like a building.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just want to clarify that, because of course it'll go across the airwaves and
Yeah,
people will get upset when they hear.
Yeah, they want a 40,000 seat stadium. There's a lot here, and there's a lot with our existing facilities that need to be updated. So obviously we're not looking at a let's get this all done tomorrow kind of approach, both because honestly I'd lose my mind, but obviously we don't have the money for that either. We're looking at a phased approach to this. And I think when we're talking about these phases, it's also important to notice when you look at the master plan, there's a lot of things that we're just sort of not doing. They might be, if opportunity presents itself in the future, we might do it, but it's not one of the targets we're trying to hit. So the first phase, what we would be looking at is the baseball field and the courts at Leland. The courts are in pretty bad shape right now. They're primarily used for the school's recess, so it kind of gets put on the back burner. But the courts are in need of some significant work, and the opportunity is there to get that Cal Ripken-sized baseball field, just not in its current configuration. Currently, where the diamond is, the court's cut into the outfield. So there's two ways that it could be alleviated. One would be moving the diamond to the other back corner by the woods. So for people who've been around for a while, the corner it hasn't been in yet, because it started in one and moved across because of sun. So it could go to that corner, and then the courts could get renovated where they are, or the diamond could stay exactly where it is but be enlarged, and the courts could completely come out and go to the opposite end of the field, thus making the full-size outfield. The master plan initially identifies moving the baseball diamond, but the final decision on that would come down to what engineers actually look at and say, cost and, and everything wise, what the best option would be. So we don't really have a preference.
Out of curiosity, and for folks listening, Cal Ripken size baseball field is what? Is that like a full-size regulation field?
Is that bigger or smaller than like a little league field versus a full size? Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
thinking
it's
60 feet 6 inches for the mound. Is it that size field?
Yeah.
What would we currently have, say, at Kiwanis now? And the field that you're talking at is the one at Memorial, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so I believe the field at Kiwanis is the size we're looking for, although the outfield might not be quite as far as it is in the center at Kiwanis. So the baseline is, I believe the baseline at Kiwanis is that the correct size, but it doesn't necessarily have to be as deep of a field as Kiwanis is. Kiwanis is kind of in the middle of an adult versus, like an adult softball versus a Cal Ripken. So, but yeah, so approximately the size of the field at Kiwanis.
Okay.
Obviously, the other idea when the courts would be redone would be that they would be designed in such a way that the drains in the courts could be plugged and the courts could just be flooded in the winter, providing that rink, and then, and then they could just be, when the ice melts, you just pull the plugs and they drain again. The current court configuration cannot do that because of the severity of the slope in the courts. That has been tried in the past, and you get 18 inches of water on one side and 2 on the other. So it's a severe slope. Also in phase 1, we would be including some basic accessibility upgrades, both to Leland, although the Leland ones would be in the process of doing the other work. We would make sure it's all accessible. And then some of the, the kind of the quick bullet point things at Kiwanis that need to happen, such as a walkway to connect the parking lot to the fire pit to the pavilion to make an accessible route there. And depending on what the engineering looks like, it might also include some parking at like tennis court or basketball court level to make accessible parking there. Just some of those kind of little checklist items that can make the facility more accessible. That would be part of phase 1. So phase 2 would really be where we start getting into bigger projects, and we would focus on the Kiwanis facility at that point. The big thing there is that we would be looking for a new building, a building that can support year-round recreation. This building would, and the master plan, they identify putting the building essentially where home plate is on the softball field, hence doing Leland first to make sure that we have a field to replace the one that will be going offline while we do this work. So there'd be a new building put in there. The parking lot would be reconfigured in this process to allow for bigger vehicles. For instance, right now when we have buses come for our Kids at Play program, I have to put cones to mark off parking spaces because if there's cars parked in them, the buses can't make the turns, and buses are remarkably similarly sized to fire trucks. So if there is a fire at the beach and a truck needs to get in, we could be in some trouble there. So this purposely designs the parking lot to deal with that. Where the current Ramsey building is, our intent would be the new building would also be referred to as the Ramsey building, keeping the tradition. But where the current Ramsey building is, we would be looking at putting a playground, possibly a splash pad kind of, some sort of a passive recreation to allow people who are at the beach to have more to do there. So that's really phase 2, is that.
And just to add to that very slightly is, we know the Ramsey building is under evaluation of what it can or can't be, right? Does it need to be repaired? Is it repairable? Or should a new building actually be put in that thought process? But there's also a lot of work that needs to be done on that baseball/softball field in terms of the retaining wall and other drainage pieces there. So that is also part of that consideration of, do we want to go and spend any money to fix those if we're gonna, if the master plan says we should really go this direction and spend money once, not twice, right? So being economical with those decisions.
Yeah, and I believe the retaining wall 3-4 years ago was estimated at a $250,000 fix. That's the retaining wall that has the dugout in it. So if you go there, the dugout is bowed in and cracking, and so it is a repair that will have to happen if the field is to remain exactly as is. And then obviously drainage issues on the field, especially in conjunction with driving equipment to build the retaining wall back. And that also brings up a good point, is that the Ramsey building, second floor is inaccessible. It's storage for our equipment, which is great to have storage, but we'd probably rather have a building that we can use. The bathrooms are not handicap accessible. The office is not handicap accessible. The garage doesn't meet DPW's needs. So there's probably a lot of money to sink into a facility that doesn't really meet needs.
And one of the things a new Ramsey building would do would be giving us an opportunity to run after-school programs. We'd have somewhere to go. Right now, there really is nowhere to go. Even in the summer, when it rains, you're going to huddle under the gazebo. So if we had a building where we could run after-school programs and vacation programs, the parents in town would have a place to send their kids. And that serves the public.
Community. Yep.
So then in phase 3, that's when we really look at the development of the Trask property. A couple reasons for pushing that to the third phase. One, because it's probably one of the bigger undertakings in that it's a undeveloped property. I mean, it's been cleared at some point, but it's an undeveloped property for recreation purposes anyway. So there's going to be a lot more complications involved in that work. Also, currently, we don't have the ability to do it. Even if we had the money today to start work, we don't have that ability yet. So sort of pushing that to the back burner until we can kind of work on the facilities that we currently have and get those up to par. But the Trask property identifies a lot of potential. Primarily, it's fields. Our fields currently are booked 7 days a week. At Leland, it's booked 7 days a week, but 5 of those days we've booked other groups on them. So we have 2 groups using the field at once because there's nowhere else to put them. We decline field requests all the time, so we just don't have enough as it is, let alone, the planning for growth. So the Trask property, adds soccer fields. It adds another, like Cal Ripken sized baseball field. It adds a smaller, like a little league baseball field with some rectangular fields out in the outfield. And again, this is the conceptual side of it. It adds more pickleball courts. It adds more tennis courts, things that we have some pretty strong demand for within the town. So that one's the furthest away. So that's really all we have to say about that property is it could be cool. One thing, especially when you look at the master plan, there's some pretty big numbers in there. But that is, that's their estimates based on other similar jobs. When we had talked to, Dennis with DPW, he, specifically did not want to commit to any of the work that could be done by DPW, because if he committed and then couldn't do it when the time came, that obviously changes the whole scenario. But we would expect that, depending on the jobs, DPW could do portions to reduce that final price. And obviously we would be seeking grant money. We'd be, recreation's in a unique situation where, we have much more access to CPA funding than a lot of other projects around town might. So that's kind of what we would be looking at for funding sources. And, we kind of map this out, but, 5 years from now, we might be getting ready to move on a building and say, you know what, this building's not actually what we need anymore. We really need these fields, and so we're going to shift over. Time changes, and so this is that kind of roadmap. So I think we're really excited for the potential. There's a lot here, and I know a lot of the parents of the kids, at least they're the members of the public that I talk to the most, and they're very excited about the potential for what their kids could have. I think that's basically it.
And I think at our meeting last night, we discussed the next step, which would be to form a committee of stakeholders sports organizations in town, other committees, members of other committees that have an interest in this kind of project, and have those folks get together and try to refine the vision and, really hone down into some of the details, which we hope to have. It's going to be a while, probably a year before we're going to get to that point.
Yeah. Something I'm curious, I know you kind of touched upon it, the Ramsey building, looking forward, that field seems like it's kind of the best field that we have in town, in my opinion. I may be wrong there as far as the baseball field. So it would seem like it'd be a shame to lose that, to lose access to that field. So if you were to build something and lose the field, what do you see that building doing? What would you have inside of it? I know you said meeting place.
Talking about the field next to the parking lot, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
at Kiwanis Beach, that
Yeah,
the
so,
lower field, the lower baseball field.
So certainly, as at this moment, that is the best baseball field we have. Now, if it rains heavy tonight, that field will be offline for 2 or 3 days because there will be standing water in the entire outfield, specifically the right field side. Home plate's flooded, second base is flooded. So that field needs a significant amount of work. They did a significant amount of work last year, and it made it a lot better. But it's basically the way it was described to me as every 2 or 3 years they put a fairly expensive Band-Aid on that field to keep it okay. What makes it the nicest baseball field we have available right now is that we have that and we have Leland, and Leland's too small. So the goal here would be that we would be replacing it with something better with this reconfiguration of Leland. We'd make it something that's more useful to the groups that are using the field. I will also tell you that the field at Kiwanis is the only field I don't book 7 days a week. Women's softball uses it Monday nights, men's softball uses it Sunday mornings, and maybe youth baseball books it 1 or 2 days a week for practice. So it is our least used field of all the fields we have.
Yep.
In fact, they book Leland for more play time because they book it for the little kids.
Yep.
And in this reconfiguration, they still be able to use, the way they use it now is the corner where the old diamond used to be, which is all grass. They basically set up like T-ball there, so they put bases on the grass, and that's how they're using those fields. So baseball is our lowest field user. Baseball and softball is our lowest field user right now, but certainly we don't want to eliminate them by eliminating a field. So that's why we're looking to do the replacement. I think as far as the beach facility goes in general, it gets a lot of traffic that is not baseball or softball related. So it's a bigger opportunity for us to do other stuff there. Now, as far as a building, what we would be looking at for that building is, it was identified in the master plan would be a full-size gym for basketball. It wouldn't be a competition like big bleachers. It would be similar to what we have here, but more space for basketball to happen. We've had 2 men's basketball leagues that we've turned down because we can't use this court. We have volleyball that meets at the school, which is a fairly profitable program for us, but anytime there's anything at the school, they'll bump us to another school, bump us to another night, bump us off entirely. We really don't have any kind of control over when they do that. We do yoga in the elementary school library, and then if the library is used for something, we get bumped to the music room, or again, completely eliminated from their schedule. There's a lot of things that people are asking for that we just physically can't accommodate because we don't have a place to accommodate it. So that building sort of becomes the indoor recreation staple for the full year, because they play volleyball indoors all year. So that's really what it's going to do, and it's going to allow us to offer a lot more adult fitness programs. I think that people have a tendency to think recreation is the kids, but and that is where that's our bread and butter right now, is the kids in the summertime. But then Council on Aging starts servicing people at age 60. So right now, from 14 to 59, we're just not servicing that population, unless you count me hiring 14-year-olds to work the gatehouse. I guess I cover a couple of that, you know.
Right.
So that's the big thing, is we want to make sure people understand we want to service the whole community, not just the kids. But what we have available to us for facilities right now is the kids and a couple things that we can fit in some locations.
Like you said, men's softball league or men's volleyball league, something like that, or women's softball. That's really the only other ones that you can service, really.
Right, and it's probably worth noting, men's softball and women's softball are their own organizations. They rent the field. So
Okay.
we don't even have the infrastructure. We don't have the infrastructure to support a league, so we can't start a men's softball or a women's softball league because we only have the one field for them to play on. So they're their own league. That's an area league, and they just play their home games at Kiwanis.
Okay.
So.
Do you have any other questions? Any discussion?
Just a comment and observation and a couple of quick questions. So one is, awesome job. I think that it's great to have these kinds of plans, and pulling the organization and all the work that you guys do and community input is wonderful. So I think it's important for our community to have plans like this in all aspects, frankly, of what goes on in a town, to think about sort of investing and where we invest money, where the town invests money, and give taxpayers the options and a view into, hey, these are the different things you could do with the money that might be available. So to that end, can you just on a quick question is, what was the public input process? Because I know you had some meetings, I think, over at Nipmuc and
Yes.
a couple of other community forums.
Yeah, so there was two open meetings to the public where BFC Group, the engineers we hired, came in and they explained the process. What they did is they put a map of each facility at different tables. They had somebody from RecCom at each table, and they had somebody from BSC at each table. So as people came through, they would say, hey, we'd like to see this here, we'd like to see that. They had scale cutouts of various fields so people could kind of physically go like, oh, what about a baseball field here, and do that. We received quite a few emails as well, and that all got passed on to BSC. And there was some people whose desire for the Trask property was to leave it completely natural and just leave it as a natural property.
Yeah.
Of course, it was gifted to the town. One of the intended purposes was an athletic complex. So certainly we could leave some of it natural, but within the spirit of the gift, we obviously couldn't just leave it untouched forever. And so that was the public input process. The second meeting, and this is one of the reasons we went with BSC, is that their second meeting was after they put together their initial recommendations. So people who came to the second meeting got to see almost exactly what's in the master plan now. We did have a RecCom meeting, so there was, again, an open meeting where they presented the initial things, and in that meeting they gave us 2 or 3 options for most facilities, and we sort of said, based on what we're comfortable with program offering, here's what we think we'd like to see. If I recall correctly, we pretty much did the less expensive on every one of the options, because we were kind of like, oh, that's cool, but we don't need that. And then there was a couple of them where we're like, well, this is the less expensive option, but this one featured the expensive one. That's important to us, So that's what was presented to the public for their comment. And then some modifications were made from that for this final product.
Great. And just help me reconcile, I, on the one hand, heard that you turn away requests for fields, but that the Kiwanis field isn't used every day. So are those requests like you're turning away soccer field requests, or just help me understand that, that the field's too big, or what's the...
Yeah, no, so right now we have, at Leland, for instance, we have soccer there 7 days a week, or 6 days a week. They don't play Sundays, right? So we have soccer there 6 days a week. We have 2 separate flag football groups that initially were both looking for 5 days a week on the same field. We have a field hockey group that was looking for, I think they wanted 2 or 3 days on that same field. So we had to basically limit where, basically the 2 flag football groups each got 2 days and the field hockey group got 1 day. So it's not that we're completely turning away, at least kids groups. We're not turning away kids groups that are in-town-based sports, because that's how the priority structure is set up for field usage, is in-town youth sports gets priority. The trade-off is is that when the Evangelical Men's Softball League is looking for, they're looking for a field, and it happens to be at the same time that the Upton Men's Softball League is, we have to turn them away because our second priority is men's sports. And so we give them, or
Right.
not men's
I'm just
sports.
trying to understand why the
Yeah.
Kiwanis field isn't used every day.
It's baseball and softball doesn't have the demand
as
that all the
popular.
other sports
It's not
do.
as popular. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the times that were being requested didn't align for open times.
For open
on
time.
the-
Okay, so it's not that we're turning people away for that type of use, it's just that that use isn't
Yeah,
something that's
I-
as
Yeah.
much demand.
And I think we have gotten other people that have asked for, like, an adult group at Leland, which isn't,
Yeah.
that field isn't large enough to accommodate that
Yeah.
full-size field,
Yeah,
right? And therefore, it's Kiwanis, Kiwanis is already fully booked. So
yeah,
we-
got it. So there's more demand for soccer fields and flag football and those kinds of
Right.
setups as opposed to baseball.
And then when spring rolls around,
Yeah.
then we get lacrosse asking for every field 7 days a week, except for West River, which they took 1 day a week, and just for their like U10 girls games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've made it fit.
Yeah,
and we have.
As best we can.
Yeah, and we have looked into using the outfield of Kiwanis as like a U10 soccer field, a smaller field. The problem with that is that all summer the softball's going on, so they need to shut that field down for maintenance in the fall, whereas all the soccer fields and stuff get shut down essentially during the summer.
During the summer, yeah.
yeah.
So, which is the other thing, is because of the amount of usage of the fields, they are shut down all summer. So I have to jump through a lot of hoops to get one field open to run like a 1 week camp,
Yeah.
because that's their maintenance time, and we try to respect that. We don't want our fields shut down for rehab,
Yeah, so one final point, if I may?
Sure.
Okay. So I would say the same thing to you that I've said to other groups doing master plans and doing long-range planning, right? So you have these ideas, this is sort of your input. I would very strongly recommend putting together sort of a very clear recommendation, whether it's phase one or something else, says, hey, here's phase one, here's what it is and why, here's what the cost is. Because ultimately what you have to do is you have to get support from some of the boards and committees in town, finance committee, get our support, go through that process, and then most importantly, you need to get the community's support, because ultimately you're going to show up at town meeting and you're going to ask for the $1 million, or you're going to ask for whatever the amount of money is for phase one as your first step. So certainly we can create a committee or a subcommittee or whatever. I'm not a big fan of that, because I think you're going to end up rehashing a lot of the same stuff. I think there are committees and boards that have done that, and you just end up going through this long bureaucratic process that, in another year you come back and say, yep, we support phase one, it's going to cost $1 million, let's get on the warrant. So I'd rather you put your energy into putting together the clear proposal with the clear dollar amount and building community and support around the community to do that. But, handle it however you think, but that's just my 2 cents on how these things work.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and then, I'm sorry, no, go right ahead.
Now, do you intend to meet with the capital budget committee?
Yeah, so once we're at that point where we have that, here's phase one, here's the cost, which, by the way, 1 million is exactly what I wrote down as my note, like the approximately, so.
I figured that out.
Good guess. But, once we have that, written recommendation, here's phase one, here's what it entails, here's the current estimated pricing, then yeah, we would certainly want to meet with them.
And CPC.
And CPC certainly.
Yeah, FinCom and sort of make the rounds, right? Just to make
Yeah.
sure there's not.
See if they can fit your timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Anything, any other questions, any other comments?
No.
Very good. There's a lot to
Great.
absorb here, obviously. I
Great.
haven't had a chance to
Great
read the whole
job.
report, so
Yeah.
we'll get familiarized with it, and we'll talk
you.
again.
And please don't be scared of the numbers when you read the report.
Nope, I read through it, it looks great. It's great information, and it's exciting opportunities.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very good, thanks. Okay. Very good. So we are on to 4.4 on our agenda, which is an update from the Municipal Community Center Feasibility Committee. We have a couple of committee members. Matthew, I see, is here.
I am the chair. I'm Greg Manning, and I'm the chair of this group. And
Good evening, Greg.
we don't have a video with sound. We have slides, but if they're not working, fine. We'll just wing it.
The selectmen have a presentation, so the first, 8 slides, 10 slides are what Mr. Manning will be discussing.
Great.
Okay.
So all this
What does he have?
information was in your online packet. I
Yep.
have
Yes.
printed copies if that would be helpful, or if you can see it on your iPads, I'll save the paper.
Yeah, no, I have it.
I'll take one, please.
Yeah,
I
it's taken
can
a long time.
I can read it better.
The
on
one thing
paper
that's
than this.
nice, the map is nice and bigger, so
Yes.
that's something you might want to.
Right. And we have both Matt, the director of the library, and Janice, the Elder and Social Services director, to answer any questions you have specifically for those
Okay.
elements.
I love maps. You convinced me. I'll take the paper, I'll take the map, I'll take it all.
I just feel I can see so much better on the map.
Yeah.
These are the larger size diagrams and maps.
Thank you.
One more sheet for you. This is
I
the.
thought you were saving paper.
Yeah, it doesn't say paper, just throw the recycled bin. You already used the paper, so we'll take the paper.
Well, we could use
How's
these for
that?
another public hearing.
Oh,
So
then
this
I'll
is
be
another,
gentle.
this is just the fact sheet. One side is the library, the other side is the Council on Aging and Social Services. And if none of the committee members want this chair, I'll take it. So Greg doesn't have to sit here by himself.
All right. You appointed a committee of 7, and we worked on this for about a year. And we have looked at a solution that would take care of both the senior center, the social services, and the library. And we hired a architect, T2 Architects, and they made all those beautiful renditions. And basically what we did in conjunction with the downtown visioning process was to confirm that 8 Grove Street would be a suitable site. And we, as a committee, voted unanimously on August 1st to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to move forward with a conceptual design produced by the architects for 8 Grove Street. Both the senior area and the library are over 40 years old, and they're insufficient for the needs of the community, and also they don't have, they're not ADA compliant, which is, in this day and age, a deterrent, and at some point, someone would say they have to be made that way. The library is literally across the street, but the senior center is beyond the post office in West Upton. So we would like to see a joint building downtown as part of the new development of the downtown. The site is located downtown. It's in the hub of the municipal government and preserves the character, and there's also ample parking. There's 120 sites within the downtown here, and like the senior center has 8 parking spaces. I don't think, we have very few events there that have less than 8. I mean, they're usually more than that. Because the conceptual design is flexible. It's on 1 story. It's approximately, I guess it's 13,700 square feet. And it is, on that drawing there, that the top one, it shows the building as it, I mean, the architect did a fantastic job in putting this building on that site. I mean, it is, I'm very impressed with what they did, and the dotted red lines are the current buildings that are there now, and the rest of it is that the conceptual design of what we want to have. Let's see, what else do we have? There's lots of pictures, and with the next steps
I did have a quick
Yeah,
question.
questions are always welcome.
Oh, excellent. Upton Historical Society, they actually gave us a presentation, probably 8 to 10 months ago. In your current plan, is there suitable space for them or not?
Well, there is and there is. I mean, if they have exhibits, they could be within the space itself. Space for their files and things like that. I don't believe we
No,
have.
so in this design, we were unable to find room for the historical museum and their storage. What we are hoping is that they will have other options if the library and the senior center move out of their current locations. We hope that the town can find somewhere else for the museum to go. Some of those options might be if the town retains the Knowlton Racine building, the Historical Society could certainly use that. There may be other areas inside town buildings where they could move to. But in this community center, there isn't a home for the museum.
Okay.
Right. And before making a recommendation to acquire the 8 Grove Street property, there's a few things we need to do. We need to appraise the property. We need to do a Phase 1 environmental site assessment. There was an assessment done, but I believe it was like a couple of years ago, and state law requires it be not less than 6 months old. So we would have to do one of those and check for groundwater and a site survey. But tonight, the committee are requesting from you funding for an appraisal and a ESA for the site, and that's about $7,000. And then the committee anticipates acceptable results from the site testing and appraisal, and we would look forward to submitting articles for November of approximately $700,000 to fund design and bid documents. Any other questions?
I guess I'll just throw out a few concerns, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues to kind of pick up where I leave off. In general, I think the one thing that really jumps out to me is the lack of parking. We know that parking is kind of an ongoing battle here in the center of town. We also know that we have a little bit of a parking issue with the Council of Aging. I think we just had to approve some no parking signs along Centennial Court there, because of cars that were kind of spilling out into the street. So it doesn't appear like there's adequate parking.
No, there isn't because the size of the site, but people can still walk. I mean, and there's parking right over the creek. The town I came from, we built a library, and the parking lot was huge, and you could walk, the distance from here to Grove Street and still be in the parking lot.
In the lot, yeah.
So you go in there to work with the library or be in the community center, there is other parking.
Right. I mean, I think the thing that concerns.
Yeah, and just to add to that, if you look around, there's about 120 municipal parking spaces around that building that's within walking distance between, what across the street parking is, what the Knowlton Racine parking is, the 13 parking spaces right on the site. And then hopefully, with this being the anchor of the new revitalization of downtown, there would be an agreement with a developer to do share parking that would be right across the creek. So I think it's something that, I know it's a concern, but I think it's definitely can be overcome.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be nervous to try to put an idea forward to the taxpayer and not have that box checked,
Well,
in.
it is checked with 120 municipal parking spots within walking distance of it. That's how I would look at it.
Right. Well, and the other thing that I'm concerned is there's no sidewalk along Grove Street, so we'd have an issue for people to really safely, again, we're talking about elders, Council of Aging, so my concern would be, I understand somebody can easily walk, 50 or 100 yards, but is it safe for them? Where there's no sidewalk there, we're gonna then be forced, to install a sidewalk or some sort of a safety issue.
Well, I would think this is a conceptual plan, and that could definitely be something that could be added, you know, as part of a
We're jumping
plan
around.
to do some type of
Probably.
sidewalk, so it is safe for
Yeah.
any residents that
This
do
one's
need
gonna
to
be a
walk,
lot.
that we would definitely have part of the site plan on the site that there would be walking, areas for that would be safe.
Right, there is, that drawing there is a sidewalk that goes across the creek and into that parking lot. That's just not right on the other side there.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So
if I
that
can
pink,
just,
what's highlighted in pink then is
Right.
considered,
that would be a walking
that'd be
path.
part of a,
Right.
okay, a walkway over the bridge.
And if I can just add, I know Kelly mentioned the downtown redevelopment project. One of the things we tasked our architect to do, and one of the things I like about this particular site, is that the town could go ahead with this community center independently of what's happening with the downtown redevelopment. But if the development does happen, there's a lot of opportunities to really enhance the community center between the sidewalks that you mentioned, having a parking lot across there, making partnerships with whatever private businesses go in there. So this plan, I think, it's workable if nothing happens downtown, but it will certainly be a lot better if some downtown improvements go along with it.
Right, right. And then just one other thing I'll throw out real quick and then I'll turn it over. You know, in my mind, we were looking to kind of, you know, we have the ability to borrow somewhere around $7 million and make that payment without affecting the tax rate. It looks like this will be in excess of a $10 million project plus land acquisition. So it looks like this would then be, you know, some sort of a substantial increase in the tax burden, would be my only other comment. So I guess with that, I'll turn it over.
Just for the appraisal is, what, $7,000 around?
For the fund design and bid documents, 7,000, yes, for the EAS and the appraisal, yes.
And Derek, is that something that we have in one of our budgets, or something that should go to the special town meeting?
The appraisal cost?
Yeah.
To appraise the property from our appraiser would be approximately $2,500. The cost to have a phase one analysis is an additional $7,500. And then there's the environmental cost, which I think there's been discussions that would be picked up in other funding sources.
So if,
Does that include the groundwater monitoring?
Phase one analysis would include groundwater monitoring.
Right.
So if we're on the page that says site assessment, where we have some of the numbers, these are things that our architect and other consultants have recommended we should do on that piece of property before we ask the town to acquire it. The feasibility committee has a fund of $5,000 that was approved at the May town meeting specifically for assessing this site, and we were hoping that $5,000 would cover most of it, and when we actually got these quotes for work in, as always, they're higher than we hoped. So I think, and the committee hasn't, but we voted to ask the selectmen for funds for just the appraisal, which was the $2,500, and then we got some of these other quotes in, and I don't think the committee has had a chance to vote on them, but there was some consensus that we use our $5,000, we ask the selectmen to appropriate or allocate about $7,500 or so. So, you know, you can cover the appraisal and the phase one assessment. Our $5,000 can cover the groundwater monitoring, and then we'll figure out what to do about the site survey somewhere down the line. I think the first three are the most important because those are things that could really uncover any issues with the property. The site survey is a little bit more straightforward, I think. And they did have, so this phase one assessment and the groundwater monitoring, because this site was used for a garage automobile repair, there was concern about what could be in the soil. So the owner actually did both these steps in 2013, and he's provided that report to the committee. It needs to be updated. So unfortunately, a 6-year-old report seems like nothing probably has changed on that site in 6 years, but we do have to redo the work.
Right.
Were
So-
there any red flags on the report?
No, so that 2013 report found no evidence of hydrocarbons, no evidence of any groundwater contamination, no soil contamination.
Just needs to be
So
Right.
we're pretty confident it'll come back clean, it just has to be done again.
And if you look at this, if you're on the site after it's rained, there's no runoff that contains hydrocarbons because you can't, there's nothing in the water.
Yeah.
So then I guess the other question or comment is, looking forward, to November, we know that we have a warrant article regarding 6 Main Street. So now we have 6 Main Street kind of in play. It seems like we have to give some direction, I guess. So is the concern for the total cost of a project like this, do you have any thoughts or concerns about that?
I mean, I definitely have some questions and suggestions. So I agree with your comment about the parking. Like, parking is definitely a problem. To put in a building of this size without parking proximal to the main entrance is a challenge, right? That's clearly one of the challenges with this site, is that there's not enough room to put in adequate parking for a facility of this size. I recognize there's parking around. I think people could find a place to park that was within walking distance. But to your point, people that are elderly or otherwise have trouble moving or have mobility issues, or certainly if there's weather or in the winter, like, those all create challenges. So the parking is certainly something that I think would be a difficult part of this. A question I do have is, have you talked to anyone on the planning board or zoning board about the use of this parcel for this? I think a lot of this is sort of pre-existing, but there's setbacks with the water and all that. So is there, that seems like, it's right along the waterway, so that would be my other fear, is that we would have restrictions.
Yeah, so the board, you guys are our first stop since this committee reports to you. So certainly our plan is in the upcoming months to go to, finance committee and capital budget, conservation, planning board, anybody that will talk to us.
Yeah.
We did have a landscape architect involved in the planning, so we're pretty confident on setbacks and things like that.
Yeah.
The comments about the creek are well made, and I think our intent would be to improve the water flow. Right now it's, a pretty choked, not very well maintained area.
Yeah.
So we hopefully improve some of that, and those are things that the Conservation Commission usually looks at. We definitely would be asking for some variances on, obviously we're pretty close up against the water.
Yeah.
We did have some discussions with the Conservation Commission, because it is so close to the river. Riverfront area, that's a previously disturbed area, and it's also an area that's been developed and is subject to development. And really, as long as we leave the water better than it is now, and we can do that by managing stormwater, it's very likely that we can get something there.
Yeah, I think unfortunately our center of town holds a lot of challenges. The way the water carves through in numerous spots, of course, next to this building, there's a brook that runs down through there, and obviously it dissects this land. And as I mentioned earlier, 6 Main Street, it impacts that as well.
I think it makes a beautiful landscape for our downtown area. It is a challenge from a development perspective, but we could exploit it as a natural resource.
It could be pleasing to walk around, and you have running water and all that. But the problem is, it cuts all these parcels into small parcels of land, which ultimately, is a hindrance with a project like this.
Yeah, for sure.
It would just seem, I have a map that I did a few months ago to try to get a better feel for what downtown looks like and how big the parcels are. Do you have an acreage or a fraction of an acre of what this property is?
Slightly less than half.
20,000 square feet.
20,000 square feet. I wanted to say like 0.47 acres, but
I think that's what I found as well. So I just wondering if we had the same. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely, so we've been looking for sites for a library building for a long time, and that's really been the fundamental challenge is, do we want a larger site way off in the outskirts of town, or do we want a smaller site in the heart of downtown? And I think our architects did a really good job on a difficult site, but it still retains those challenges, as you point out, the parking and we're constrained by the river on one side and then a fairly tall retaining wall on the other side.
I think you make a good point, right? It's a great use of a small site. I think they did a great job fitting this concept into that particular site. I personally am a fan of locating the library in a downtown area. I think it's an important part of a small community and a rural community, certainly, and I think it can be part of an attractive downtown for people that are looking to move to town. I think some of the parking, right, you could work that out because we do have the Racine building. If we get other parcels nearby, there's some parking there. If someone privately develops where the church is and that property there, you could put together some arrangement to get some of those spaces. So it's tough, but you could sort of work it out. So again, like you said, there's no perfect answer, but they did a good job on this. You guys did a good job.
And I'd like to add, because we've been using the term library, and keep in mind, this is a joint with the elder services. Did I say that right?
Yes.
With the elder services, and, I just distributed an email, I should have forwarded it to the Board of Selectmen, but it's almost like you're taking, I love one of the titles of the slide that said one mission, what does it say?
The sum of two departments is greater than the whole.
The sum of two departments is greater than one. So you're really taking two departments that could have a very easily shared mission, and that's helping the public, the residents in the downtown area, an anchor for the downtown revitalizations. Yeah, there's some challenges to the project, absolutely, but we're not going to overcome those challenges if we don't explore them further. And I think it's a good opportunity. I know the committee has worked really hard to try and move this so that we can present something to the town as a library elder service building, keeping in mind the last time we tried to get a new library that actually had a chance of passing was 20 years ago when it was the district library.
Right.
Way back when.
And so I guess there's probably a couple of questions is, A, do we have $7,000 if we wanted to spend it? So two different questions. And then I think that you guys clearly would have to talk to the capital budget committee, and similar to the folks that we just talked to, everybody's got to run through that. We've got DPW, we've got the downtown revitalization, we've got RecCom, we've got this, we've got other infrastructure enhancements, we've got the school that's going to be looking for money. So there's a sort of lot in play, which there always will be, but we want to hold things in context so that when we talk to the community and to the taxpayer and to people in town, we can say, if you do this, these are the things that you're not doing. Make sure you're aware of that so people don't make decisions in a vacuum. So that's something that the capital budget committee definitely helps us with. That's part of their mandate, is to help prioritize and sort all those things out. So, but that's all I would say is, do we have the $7,000? But that's it for me.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I was going to say the only other thing that I'm thinking is, are we throwing, are we going to have mixed signals at town meeting? Because if we're looking at 6 Main Street, then the question is going to be, what are our intentions with 6 Main Street? So it's kind of like we've got, two pieces of property in play. What is our direction? I think unfortunately this is, if you go down this path, and both of these, we were both at the meeting regarding the EDC and the RFP committee, and they also have an idea where they were thinking of a 40R district downtown. So I think it's kind of an either or. This particular parcel, I believe, would be included in the 40R if they are able to get that presentation to the state and if it makes sense. So it's, I think we have to decide, do we want to, what are our thoughts with 6 Main Street? What do we see happening there? And then what do we see happening with this parcel? Because if we go to town meeting with 2 parcels, asking the taxpayer to buy 2 parcels of land,
But right now,
we're asking for trouble.
right now, they're not asking to buy parcels of land. What they're looking for is an appraisal and a Phase 1 environmental site event, assessment and the groundwater hydrocarbon monitoring.
Right.
That's, I think that's short money because you have your
Yeah.
EDC project, you have the Council on Aging and the library. At least when you get that part of it done, when you go to do your downtown revitalization, that all becomes part of it. It's well worth it to have all that done before they even start, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just a question of gathering information, right? So the question is, as we do these projects, we can worry about the bigger questions or the bigger answers when we get to the bigger questions, but we may never get to those bigger questions because the answers to these very small questions might say, you know what, this isn't going to work for reason A or reason B or reason C, and we go, okay, well, we don't have to debate about the big thing because there's nothing to debate. But I do think that that's right. As you move into these projects and you sort of edge into them, it makes sense to spend $7,000 to get information so that when we do talk to people, whether it's in November or any other time, we can say, hey, this is what we know. It's a good site. We can use it. We can fit something there. Parking is an issue. Overall cost is an issue, but otherwise it would work. And, you know, we've checked some of the boxes. But again, that's sort of my take on it. But so do we have $7,000 if we wanted to spend it?
So, remember at town meeting, we appropriated $25,000 under the discretion of the Board of Selectmen for these types of services, appraisals, engineering, surveying type of services. So the Board of Selectmen has $25,000 that we could appropriate for this purpose.
Sorry to interrupt. Did we give some of that to the EDC though, or have we spent any of that?
I thought we did. Right. Right.
That's separate of their own. Right. So we haven't used any of that yet. That's my
I'm
question.
not sure if we used it for the appraisal. Did we use that, any of that
For
in the
6
appraisal
Main.
for 6 Main?
That appraisal was in the last fiscal year?
FY19?
It was in the last fiscal year. That was, okay.
only a $500 appraisal.
Okay.
That was the access to
Okay, so we have the $7,000. I'd support spending the $7,000 to get to the next level of information and detail. I absolutely share some of your concerns, Steve, about, you know, what are we doing with 6 Main Street? I don't know that I would even want to go and make a recommendation or put this on the warrant for November, but I certainly wouldn't want to do it without this information answered. So I'd say, let's get the answers to these questions, you know, and then sort of we'd go from there. The short answer to 6 Main Street and what we're going to do with it, right? I would just position it as we could use it for parking. Whether we keep the Racine building or not, we could use 6 Main Street for extra parking for this particular building or for the redeveloped site over here, or if Racine building, for whatever reason, the town decides they want to take it down, we take it down. We have 6 Main Street as a contiguous parcel there to sell off to a developer or to do something else with it from a municipal perspective. So I think that's okay. And honestly, I don't see us getting to November. I don't see us having this ready for anything in November. I just don't see it happening. So that's my 2 cents.
I'll say the committee is going to try very hard to have all this information for the November town meeting. We may not get there, but our intentions at this point are to try to get this work done
When does the
in
warrant
time
close?
for November.
So September 13th, the warrant closes.
So it's just 3 weeks away.
Why wouldn't
Well, I
we?
think the intention is to ask for a placeholder, and I think that's the last page of the presentation. I don't need to,
No, this is good.
yeah, so if you look at the next steps, is our intention is to, our intention is to look to get design bid money for the, is to look for a substantial amount of money to do design bid in November, so they're ready for May. Because, and then, the ending is based on the design, we're looking at $9.3 million after the initial $700,000 for design bid. And at this point, the committee determined we were going to turn it over to the town manager to explain maybe how some of that could be funded. But in order to move this project soon, and I don't rushed right now, but, yeah, I guess I'll say it out loud, we're competing with the school at this point, and we've got some debt that's coming off, and I personally would like to see it prioritizing the town and the downtown revitalization, and letting the voters know that there's options for what's happening with their taxpayer dollars.
Okay.
And if I just could add to that, so the town meeting calendar that I had distributed in the past, so the warrant closes on September 13th. The Board of Selectmen will review the draft warrant on October 1st, and that's when you're making a decision as to which articles you think should move forward to town meeting.
So they can put a placeholder in there and we can fill in whatever details we get as a part of the appraisal and the assessment and all that.
That's exactly right. And the execution of the warrant isn't until October 15th, which is your last opportunity to vote.
Okay. All right. That's where I was confused, because I was thinking that all of the work here would need to be done before you put in the warrant, but you don't have to.
Right.
So I think we get back to Steve, your point, which is, are we comfortable, well, and this is again a separate conversation from the $7,000, but the notion here that we're going to be, or that we'll have a warrant article to ask for $700,000 to do a design bid on a parcel of land that we don't own. Right, so that's not kind of
Right.
funky, but.
Yeah.
And I'd want this work done before I voted on any,
On an article, yeah.
you know.
Right.
I'm with you. So,
So I think, look,
take our
based on-
small bites and spend the $7,000 and see what we.
Yeah, I
Right.
think at that, right, I think what we're saying basically there is we're not in favor of putting a placeholder in for $700,000. But we do want to have, as you said, we're looking as, okay, let's get the answer. Frankly, based upon what we've been going through as far as appraisal services and whatnot, that could be a challenge in itself.
I wouldn't say I support or don't support putting a $700,000 article on. I would say I want the information and then, so that we can discuss it.
Right.
Yeah, I want to spend the $7,000 to get the information so that we can have a conversation about what happens in November.
As an aside question really quick, I'm just looking, and I'm saying, okay, if we're spending whatever the number is, 8 million, 9 million, 10 million, whatever that number is, are we comfortable not having space for Upton Historical? Or do you feel like we can find space elsewhere in our facilities?
That's enough of a priority that I'm very confident we could make sure that we found space for the Historical Society and all the work and all the documents and the displays that they have. We'll make that a priority. I'm confident we can make that happen.
But not at this location?
Just not in this location.
And it's best to put the 7,000 up front now. Maybe this project won't work, maybe the redevelopment won't work, but we don't know that until all this has
Yeah.
been done first.
Yeah, I agree.
Can I ask a question of the committee, and I know we're not posted, but I guess I'm saying, we said we needed 7,000, but the way the site assessment was 7,500. And then we need $3,000 to do the appraisal, and then we need $5,000 for the site survey. So to me, that's like $1,500. So I guess my question is how did we come up with the number of 7,500? I think it needs to be closer to 10,000 from the voice amount.
Well, the 7,500 is the water and the,
I think we were not doing the site survey. That's how we got down to
Phase one analysis, the complete phase one analysis is $7,500.
Right.
It's bullets, I'm sorry, it's not right here.
Well,
And then the appraisal is $2,500, so that's what Patty referred to with 10,000. That's separate from the site survey.
Right.
So, I'm sorry, Patty, but on your first three bullets equates to $10,000.
right.
Your fourth bullet is the site survey for, it says $5,000 to $6,000. So, I think the
I
question
think-
is.
And again, I apologize to the post selectmen, this site survey, phase one, the groundwater came in after our last meeting, and we didn't repost really to talk about it. So I would almost say we need to get the site survey done as well in order to be comfortable to make the recommendation that we move forward to try and purchase this piece of property. So I would almost ask independently, I guess, for $10,000 versus the $7,500.
So use the $10,000 we're requesting tonight for the appraisal, the phase one, and the groundwater monitoring, and then use the committee's funds for
Right.
the site survey.
Right.
Right. I would agree with
But
that.
you're spending then $15,000 on a piece of property, because you're gonna spend 10,000 of selectmen money and 5,000 of your own money, you're gonna spend 15,000 evaluating this property?
Yep.
On a $10 million project, it's probably prudent.
Yeah.
But like-
That's just my opinion.
But like I said before, that whole area is something that you want developed.
Right, but
But-
we're only getting a look at this.
But between the rivers here, you get the analysis on the hydrocarbon and monitoring, and in an environmental the same.
But that's not gonna tell you what's happening over here or over here. You know, you're only getting it here. I don't think that particular hydrocarbon study is only on this parcel.
Yeah, it's wells that they have driven on that
Right.
property, so it's not gonna tell you about the river. It's gonna tell you about the
property.
groundwater under 8 Grove Street.
Just
that
the
flows
8
into the.
just 8
I would agree with that, yeah.
And keep in mind, 8 Grove Street is where the oil tanks were, so that's the one that's the more high priority on what that looks like, and make sure it's environmentally safe for the town to maybe acquire. I think the other lot, if I remember correctly, or if I heard correctly, was just bus parking. Say that, answer that question. I think it was just where they used to park the buses.
I seem to remember there being tanks on both parcels, but I'm not 100%
I
sure.
believe it's only been on 8 Grove Street. Don't quote me on that, but
Mhm.
I believe that's what I've heard.
So, how much money are you asking for?
10,
We're asking you for 10 from your fund, yes.
right.
With the anticipation of.
Unanimous?
Yeah.
Yes, we're good? We're good, anyone
Right.
else? 11, 12, there you go, can I get 12?
I don't have a vote, that's the matter.
That's what we're looking
Ten
for.
figures.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, I excuse my.
Again, we're throwing around a lot of different, you know, and there's variations in here, so, 3 and 4, 7, you know. I be honest with you, I don't like it. It's just, for me, you know, I wanna guard my 20,000 that's in there. I don't mind doing I don't mind doing it in steps. I don't mind doing, you know, the appraisal for 2,500 to 3,000, see where that gets us. But frankly, you know, this property was looked at 4 or 5 years ago, and it was not deemed to be suitable. We looked at the church. It wasn't suitable when the last committee, you know,
Who
disbanded.
looked at this parcel? That was before my time.
The previous library feasibility committee had
Mhm.
looked at all the properties that were available in town.
Mm-hmm.
And again, none of them were suitable when they disbanded the committee in 2016, I think is when it was.
I was a member of that feasibility committee, and we went through a request for proposals process. So we asked landowners to offer the land to Upton, and those were the properties we evaluated. And town-owned properties. The owner of that property did not offer that
The
land
land.
to us in that particular feasibility session.
Understood. The other question is about any state funding for a project like this. I know that every certain number of years, if you have over a certain number of square feet, the state will help subsidize some of this. I don't want to like totally derail us, but I'm
Sure.
just curious about that.
So
how
the
that plays
state
in.
does have a very robust library construction grant program. This project would not qualify for their guidelines
Okay.
because we're combining it with
Got it.
the senior center. We're optimistic there might be some grants because we're moving from a non-handicap accessible building to a newly accessible one. I don't know what the dollar figures on those might be, but unfortunately this project will not qualify for the significant library construction grant. Janice, I don't know if you can speak to any senior center construction grants, no help from the state on that.
Yeah. And had the committee by any chance considered the current location?
The Knowlton Racine building?
Yes.
This feasibility, we've had many, many feasibility committees, so pardon me if I get them confused. This particular feasibility committee was tasked solely with looking at this joint community building. The previous committee that Bill Taylor referenced did some work in 2016, 2017, and they looked at the current Knowlton Racine building. So we have a similar level of conceptual design for what could we do if we took over all 3 floors of the Knowlton Racine building. those documents are available for anyone to request. I can certainly send them to you. Very quickly, that was about a $3 to $3.5 million project 2 or 3 years ago. So add escalation on, you're probably going to be close to 5. And it provided less, not less square footage necessarily, but a smaller range of library services than this design did. So if this project doesn't move forward, I'm sure the trustees will pull that design back out and reevaluate it. Did that kind of answer the question?
Yes, except I think I'm familiar with that particular study. I think that was a renovation, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it's renovating the
Yeah,
existing building.
which I didn't think that it was a good idea to renovate the old Racine building. But I just didn't know, again, with the addition of 6 Main Street, now that particular parcel becomes round about half an acre of land with the 2 parcels.
So you would be thinking, looking at not a renovation of the Notenstein building, but using the site for new
I
construction?
was just thinking out loud. I just wondered if you had ever discussed that in your committee meetings, I guess would be my question. Was that anything that was ever discussed?
No, because we were combining both.
Not this feasibility committee.
Right.
Other feasibility committees have.
Right.
Right. No, I mean,
It's a good question.
yeah, just, again, trying to be thorough,
No,
if
you're
we
right.
can.
I hate to admit it, not that it's your question, but that
No,
there's an
one-
option here that we haven't yet explored.
The element we added was a senior community center, and we've got 1,200 seniors,
Yeah.
and most of the projects we're developing are senior focused, so that number is only going to go up.
It's only going to go up.
Right.
Right. No, and there's a lot of demand for the existing programs at the senior center. I'm very well aware of some of those. I know there's more that they can and want to do. And I think that part of our population is only increasing and going to increase with the addition of the 55-plus housing units that we're putting in. So, I see over the next 5 years there's going to be a significant increase in the needs of a 55-plus population, people that want to take advantage of these types of community centers and senior center activities, social services. So I think that that's a difference between what you've looked at here and what you may looked at historically with the existing Racine building, or what we might consider with the Racine building going
Yeah,
forward.
yeah. Again, just wondered if you looked at it in the same context with the
Yeah.
same usage, but just, again, with the 2 parcels combined, number 3, and I think it's, Christine, I think is number 3. So 3 and 6 combined, does that give us more space, more parking, a bigger footprint? I'm not sure. Is that anything that was discussed or no?
So at the point we looked at the Knowlton Racine building, 6 Main Street, was not
Wasn't part
for
of the
sale. It
conversation.
wasn't an option. When we were looking at a standalone library, our goal for a site size was 2 acres. If we were going to build a standalone library with 100 parking spots, to be perfectly frank, the only reason we're really considering this site is because it has so much other parking in the area. The half-acre size is, as you can see on the plan, it's just barely big enough for the footprint of the building, and they squeeze in 13 parking spots and a drop-off for the van. So if it wasn't for the existing town-owned parking spots, I think this is kind of Plan A right now. There's a lot of possible Plan Bs. So would a new feasibility committee look at the combined site? I'm sure they would if this project doesn't move forward.
I think in a perfect world, what would you, when you said you had considered as a library 2-acre site, what did you kind of earmark what you needed for parking? Did you think you needed 50 spots, or what was your target?
So at those previous designs were using those state construction grant guidelines, and those guidelines are 1 parking spot per 400 square feet. And that's one of the reasons why this wouldn't even qualify, because that's a pretty firm guideline. So I think we were in the 80 to 75 to 80 parking spot range. So we've got, on this building, we've got 13 here. We've got 8 to 12, depending upon how tightly you pack them at the Knowlton Racine building. We have the town-owned municipal lot that was built a few years ago. And then when you do a really big event, it's go park by the playground, and then possibly we run the shuttle from the senior center back and forth.
Mhm.
If I could make just one more comment, because Mr. Simus brought up the growing aging population and the services. Another thing I like about this design is combining the two departments. It seems like such a common sense thing, because when you look at the list of services the library provides and the list of services the Council on Aging and Social Services provide, it looks like there's a lot of similarities there, and it really seems like a common sense thing to do. But when you look at towns across the state, there's nobody else doing this. There's towns that have library and senior center in the same building with one's in one wing and one's in another wing. But we looked really pretty hard on the committee to find a similar model where they're sharing their services, and we didn't find it. So it feels to me like a really innovative, we could be a leader here. We could be kind of the first ones to say, hey, let's see if we can make this work and maybe be a model for some other towns.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think the concept definitely works. I don't like the price tag, but I think the concept does.
Right.
You know,
I would agree.
makes sense.
Do you want to make a
Any more
motion for the
discussion?
$10,000, or do we want to discuss that more? Or?
I'd make a motion that we spend the $10,000.
I would second that motion.
I am a no on that. So, majority action.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate the support.
Thanks.
Could I add for the audience, for everyone watching, now that these plans have been revealed to the selectmen, we can make them public. So I will have these at the library. I will spend as much time as you want talking about the design and why we made the choices we made. So please come down and take a look at them.
And we'll also get uploaded to the web, to the library feasibility page. So
On the town website.
Yeah, on the website.
Mhm.
And I've,
Vanessa will be
we'll have them at the senior center.
I know,
And
I said-
I'm going to donate my paper copy to the town hall, so anybody else can come by the town hall and look at this nice big paper version, which is awesome. This is exciting. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Very good. Just for clarification, so we're covering 25
Sandy,
phase
that's
one
for you.
adjustment, assessment for
Yeah.
4,000,
Awesome.
and also the groundwater? Is that what we
The
are?
appraisal, phase one and groundwater. The only thing not covering is the site survey.
They're going to use their 5,000 for that.
But we're doing the groundwater, so these three.
Well, all of this
First
will
three.
get done with the $15,000 that they have, with 5 of their own, 10 years.
But this
So
is the
all of
three.
this is getting done.
Okay. Those three. All right. Okay, so we have Article 5.1 on the agenda. We need to appoint election workers. So we do this each year. It's quite a long list of people that give their time to the town. Any discussion on this?
My only question is, so I went over all the names as I know we all have. Do we need to read off all of the individual names? Is that, or can we just?
No, I think you can just put it as submitted to the board of
Right, okay, that'll be a lot easier.
Okay.
And obviously, this is posted, it's actually on the website now. If people have questions or want to know who these people are, they're listed here. Yeah, that was my only question, if you guys are comfortable with that.
Okay. I thought in the past we used to read them off, but that's fine if it works for the board, it works for me. So I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to appoint the election workers supplied to us by the town clerk as written in this document.
I second that motion.
I'll make that majority action. All right. Also, I'll invite up Bill Taylor. We have Article 5.2 on our agenda, discuss installation of signs at conservation areas.
Yes.
So Bill, I think we did some of these maybe 8-10 months ago.
Yeah, last time I was here, I was talking about kiosks, and
Yes.
you approved that request. This time, I'm talking about 5 signs that basically are the name of the conservation area. So there are 5 sites we have the signs for and would like permission to put up. One of them is Pixie's Park, and what I have in the package is a list of the locations and signs and their locations, and then also examples of the signs themselves. The one that Eleanor T. Howard Glen Conservation Area, that sign is essentially the same for 2 others. And then in one case, we put it all in one long sign. And then Pixie's Park was a little bit different, so I decided to include that in the package as well. Plus, it's kind of cute.
Great.
So in any case, the 5 signs are the Pixie Park sign. That's a small piece of property off of Meadow Drive that was donated to the town by the Ryan family. And it's been a couple of years since they donated, and we would really like to get the sign up so that we could recognize their very generous donation to the town. The next one is the Snow Family Conservation Area, which abuts the Peppercorn Conservation Area, and that was a donation from the Snow family. That's actually part of the rear of their property, and we would install that sign at the small parking area at the end of Taft Street. The next one is the Eleanor T. Howarth Glen Conservation Area. That's just off of the pump station, the North Street Pump Station, and we put the sign up. There's a trailhead at the North Street Pump Station. We put the sign up there. That one is part of the open space that was given to the town as part of the Glen Echo development, as is the Richard and Naomi Howarth Conservation Area, which is sort of between Howarth Drive and North Street and Sweet William Farm. There is a trailhead off of Howarth Drive, and we would put that sign there. And then finally, the last one is the Pleasant Woods Conservation Area. That conservation area was transferred to the Conservation Commission shortly after it was formed. And it was, I believe it was a gift from a citizen. And so in any case, it's about time we did some work there. And one of the things we'd like to do is put the sign up along Warren Street. That particular conservation area has access off of Warren Street, a little trailhead there. And it more or less comes down right behind the Coach Road Apartments. And we hope someday that we can make an arrangement with the Coach Road Apartments to put a trailhead there and actually make it very accessible then to the residents of Coach Road. Someday when we do that, I'll probably be back asking for permission to put a sign up there. So that's the request.
Just an aside question, Pixie's Park, does that in any way lend itself to a dog park? I know we've had this discussion, and I see the dog on the
I was
side.
going to say, for people that can't see this picture at home, Pixie's Park is a beautiful sign with a dog bust on it. So there's a beautiful image of a dog. Not sure that's what Mr. Howell was talking about when he asked for a dog park, but it's a great question.
Yeah, so I did want to mention that Pixie was the dog, the pet of the Ryan family. So it's our pleasure to remember her. The short answer is I think the Pixie's Park is probably just from a topography perspective not a very good location for it. It's also right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and I suspect that some of the neighbors may love it. Others may object to it because of the noise concerns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions, board members?
All set.
All set?
No,
All
this
right.
is great. I think the signs look great, and it's very
Okay.
generous of these people, and it's nice to recognize their contributions to the town.
I agree.
And do you have the signs to look like they're already made, I take it?
Yep. Yeah, I think I mentioned the last time I was here, we weren't aware that we needed to get your authorization for the conservation signs. So we're following that process now, but we had purchased these before that. So in the future, we'll probably ask first and then buy the signs. But
I make a motion that we approve the Conservation Commission's request to locate 5 signs as described in their paper submission for tonight's meeting.
Second?
And make that unanimous action.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill, it's great.
All right. Next, we have discuss a street sign request on Forest Street. There is a resident that lives there. It's drove by there today kind of on a sharp turn. They have asked for a children at play sign to be installed. So is there any discussion?
The only thing I would say from my perspective is that we've got the form that they submitted, and both the chief of police as well as the DPW director have approved this sign request.
Yes, it was right. It does look like it's complete. Both Dennis Westgate and Chief Michael Bradley signed off on that. So if there are no discussion items or no questions or concerns, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we grant the street sign request on Forest Street.
Second?
Make that majority action. Okay. Recognition. Anybody have any recognition items? Anything they'd like to talk about?
Not other than the great work of the committees that presented tonight. It's
All right.
wonderful. A lot of time and effort and volunteer hours that people put into those things, so
Mhm.
I'm grateful.
I'll give a call out to my mother and father. It's their anniversary. So 59 years they have been married, so
Congratulations.
Grace and Toros, happy anniversary.
Nice, very nice.
Doesn't happen that often. I know
Happy
it's
anniversary.
probably not appropriate, but I figured I'll throw that out there.
It's always appropriate, a little family fun. That's awesome. Good for them.
All right.
59 years, you said?
59 years, 1960, folks got married, so. All right, on to town manager's report. Derek, I warmed up the crowd for you.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a lot to talk about, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I'll just start off by talking about, I think, what's getting the most attention in the media with the identification of Tripoli, first, a human case in the town of Grafton, and then, as of yesterday, the state has informed the town that they've also identified mosquitoes that they've tracked that are also positive here in town for Tripoli. That being said, there are 12 communities in the Blackstone region that they're working with directly, and the State Department of Public Health will be directing aerial spraying in the very near future. We're not certain exactly when that's going to be, that aerial spraying. We would suspect they're going to give us 48 hours notice so that we can notify the community that aerial spraying will be taking place. We're not certain if that's going to cover just certain areas of town or the entire town. There's more to come on that. So what we've been doing, working with the State Department of Public Health and under the direction of our Board of Health, is really trying to educate the community as to the threat and what they can do to protect not only themselves but their children as well. So first and foremost, we've canceled all evening activities. So any time from the period of dusk till dawn, we are canceling all activities. So tomorrow night we have typically our summer concert series held at Cornice Beach. That's already been canceled by the Recreation Commission. We've also connected with our schools, so both superintendents are working closely with. The Recreation Commission is working closely, and then we've notified all of our youth leagues as well as to the evening activities. And beyond that, we're just trying to teach people just good precautions. So letting folks know if you have to go outside during that period, that peak biting hours for mosquitoes, wear long pants, wear long sleeves. I use DEET as a repellent to mosquitoes, and look for standing water. So we all know that mosquitoes breed in standing water. So walk around your neighborhood, look in your backyards, anything that contains water, like an old tire, bird baths, those will all are prime mosquito breeding areas. So the hope is that if we can reduce breeding areas, we can mitigate risk. So those are the things we're doing right now, but there'll be a lot more to come over the course of the next 7 days. We have another conference call tomorrow with the State Department of Public Health, so we'll get further instruction from them tomorrow. So before I move on, does anybody have any questions regarding that? I know that there's been a lot of social media chatter. From what I understand, working with the Board of Health, they're saying that they are getting a 40-to-1 ratio of folks that really want to see aerial spraying here in town, which is very different than historically, where in the past the town meeting has declined to join the mosquito control district in the past. Any questions? No questions, Marcia?
How much notice will the state give us before they schedule spraying?
I would suspect they're going to give us at least a 48 hours notice. Yep, at least 2 days notice. That's what I was told.
And then they just spray during certain hours, right? Is it dusk till
They're gonna,
midnight
they're
or
gonna spray in the evening hours.
the evening hours?
So that's when we'll let folks know when spraying is gonna take place and encourage folks to close their windows so they don't get the chemical inside their homes.
Not be outside, don't be outside and close your windows.
And as you said earlier, not exactly sure what areas they'll spray, but we suspect it would be in the marshy, swampy, wet areas.
Potentially. So they do mosquito trapping here in town, so they're gonna identify the areas that those traps are testing positive for mosquitoes.
Right, so we're not sure yet if they'll do a targeted spraying of certain areas or if they're gonna spray all areas of the town, right? I think that's what they're trying to determine now.
That's right. Yep.
And they'll let us know which of those they decide to do when they tell us.
That's right.
And at this point, because we're signed out on for the testing, the town doesn't have any, I mean, I know the Board of Health is saying 40 to 1, people want to do it, that's great. Is there any option at this point? If somebody said, hey, we didn't want to do it?
No.
I don't think so.
No,
right?
this is,
It's important for people, I want people to know
Yeah,
that
this,
it's not a decision we're making, this is the regulations of the state based on the program. Can you explain that?
yeah, so the State Department of Public Health,
deciding.
the State Department of Public Health, they take the lead role on the surveillance of mosquitoes. And then then they have certain threat levels. Right now, we're considered a critical threat level. There's high threat as well. So we moved to the critical threat level. Once you get to critical threat level, that's when the state more or less takes over and they start directing operations. Those communities, so some of the confusion lies is that communities that are part of the mosquito control district, you will see in those communities, they have ground spraying. So ground level spraying during the course of the summer. Folks in certain neighborhoods can ask for that type of operation to take place. This is different, that this is aerial spraying. It's going to be used by either helicopters or planes that fly fairly low to the ground that will direct this type of spraying. The Department of Agriculture, they're the ones that actually do this operation. So again, this is beyond our control at this point. This is 100% directed by the State Department of Public Health, who's making that decision, and then the tactics are being carried out by the Department of Agriculture.
Is there any cost to the town?
There's zero cost to the town at this time. Yep.
Zero cost to the town.
Zero cost.
Must be 9.
We didn't pay our electric bill.
That was well received. That zero cost to the town was well received.
Yes, haven't paid our electric bill.
Dusk to dawn.
So, any other questions regarding Triple E? One thing I can say is that Triple E is not uncommon in southeastern Massachusetts. So if you follow the news during previous summer months, you'll see that, especially Plymouth County, they've directed this operation multiple times in the past decade. So this type of mosquito, this Triple E, is most commonly found in the swampy marshlands that you would find along the south coast and even into the Cape areas as well. So the chemical they're using is common in southeast. Is also common in southern states that use this on a regular basis to try to, mostly for nuisance issues for mosquitoes, but do this on a regular basis. So I know there's some concerns about this chemical, but it's a widely used chemical not only here in Massachusetts, but across the country as well.
Do we know what the chemical is?
Yes, the chemical that they will use is called Anvil 10+10. And the two main ingredients are sumetherin and bipeneryl butoxide. And one thing they do point out is that sumetherin is also a natural component in the chrysanthemum flower. So it's actually a natural ingredient that is found. The other chemical is more man-made. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns on Triple E?
Can town request that the entire town be sprayed as a protection for all of us? Or is it the state that determines where?
Yeah, so the state, when I had a conversation with one high-level state official, they said they have to create what they use the term as a polygon to determine the area of most risk. And they're going to create that polygon based upon the mosquito trapping and the surveillance that they're conducting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep, I have no other questions on that.
All right, so just some brief operational updates. As you may have seen, I hope you have seen, we have restarted our paving operations again. We started this morning, you've seen, we were on Stearns Road and Fair as well. And so the list of the streets that I call Phase 2 of our 2019 pavement program are listed on the website. So folks that are interested can see what streets are going to be paved, and they're listed on our website. I actually posted those last week. But important to note is that when this Phase 2 is complete in conjunction with Phase 1, which is prior to July 1st, we will have completed 9.5 miles of roads. Now, to put that in context, that represents almost 14% of all of our public roads. So we did a really good job, and I say, I really, kudos go to the DPW for managing this operation. Although they don't do the work, they have to manage this operation. They have to be on the roads, making sure that the work is getting done according to our specifications. So, again, it's almost 10 miles of road, which represents 14% of our public roads. It's quite a feat in only one summer season. So, we'll continue to do that year after year until all of our roads, we bring back up our street level to an acceptable degree. Also, you should hopefully notice, we've had a lot of dead trees on the Hopkinton Road High Street area, and we've been using a lot of our tree removal money to try to remove those trees before the winter months hit. And this past year, Dennis Westgate, our DPW director, he worked out a really good agreement with National Grid, because National Grid is doing their own tree trimming program to try to extend their dollars and our dollars and work together. So he's hoping, he's in communication right now with National Grid to work out a similar agreement on Westboro Road. If you go down Westboro Road, you see this huge canopy, and we spend a lot of material on Westboro Road in the winter months because we don't have the penetration of the sunlight. So he's hoping we can work out that agreement to try to trim back a lot of the trees on Westboro Road this fall as well. As far as Kiwanis Beach goes, as I reported in the past, the upper parking lot is open and it's ready for use. But the one thing that we had to include in the upper parking lot is a turnaround for our public safety vehicles that we didn't have that in there. So the DPW with their own staff actually created a turnaround up there. So if EMS were to respond, or some of our fire trucks were to respond, they have the ability to turn in and turn out and not have to back out of the driveway. So that was really important that we were able to complete that. And then I'm sorry to say that we didn't get the $400,000 grant from the state for a complete streets application that we submitted. However, we've re-engaged the state, and we've learned from maybe some of the shortcomings of our first application, and we're going to reapply this fall for the $400,000. Kelly and I have been working very closely with our roof engineer, Gale & Associates. As you may remember, we went out to bid in May time period, late May, early June, and we received what we believe was an unfavorable bid to repair the police roof at about $295,000, which did not include the fire roof. So we thought it was best to hold off, wait for the summer months to pass. Hopefully these roofing contractors would get hungry again. So we went out to bid. We opened the bids 2 weeks ago, and I'm happy to report that for $245,000, we're going to be able to complete the fire and police roof. So that was a great feat. We're expecting, when it's all said and done, to save approximately $150,000 with the money that was appropriated for the two separate articles for fire and police. So a lot of good work that had taken place there. Right. And then from the human resources agenda, we've just given offers to 3 new dispatchers. So 2 part-time dispatchers and, 2 full-time dispatchers and 1 part-time dispatchers. 3. 3 full-time? They're all gonna be full-time, not 2 and 1? Yeah. Okay, so 3 full-time dispatchers. I didn't realize that.
The part-time became a full-time and we hired 2, so 3 full-time.
So 3 new full-time dispatchers are gonna take place. And and the reason being is We've been running on fumes up there. I've had a lot of overtime in the past 3 months. We had one person who in March left to go to a different community, and we've since had two. We had one dispatcher got promoted to be a police officer, and we've had another vacancy. So we really need to fill these positions as soon as possible. And then lastly, I will report that we've submitted two notices of intent to Conservation Commission, one for the parking lot project out here outside of Town Hall, and then the other one for the ramp that will make the Ramsey building, the fire pit, and the pavilion all ADA accessible. So once we get final approval from Conservation, we'll then go ahead and put those two projects up to bid as well. We would expect that we will need an article this fall for the construction costs for the Ramsey parking lot, Ramsey walkway. And that's it.
Very good news on the asphalt paving and also the tree trimming. Quick question regarding the roofs. That number that you mentioned, 345, 350, is that everything? Disposal, oversight, engineering, everything on that?
The 245 will be the construction costs for the fire and police roof. The oversight and engineering is a separate number that we pay Gale and Associates.
Okay.
So the original budget for Gale and Associates was about $45,000. We expect that to climb a little bit because we had to go out to bid twice, and they're going to provide oversight to the fire roof as well. So when I say up, it won't be more than $10,000. But when we look at the overall appropriation at town meeting was $510,000, we will be less $150,000 when we put those two articles together.
Very good.
Good.
Okay. Good. Any questions? Any questions?
No,
Okay.
great updates, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so next is new business. Anybody have any new business? Okay. Look ahead topic. I think we actually, I don't know if my colleagues had a chance to read the email, but there's an email regarding, and there's also been some discussion, some ideas out there discussing a ramp, a handicapped accessible ramp for the Racine building. So we have that as a look ahead topic. We'll pick that up in September. And let's see, how about public comment? It's the last item that we have. Is there any public comment this evening?
Everyone's talking about the combined community center and the pros and cons and the postage stamp size lot we have.
Marcia, could I ask you to please come up, just so we can hear you a little better? I'm sorry. We know who you are, but in any event.
The people watching can't hear you because of the microphone, that's all.
When we talk about the new community center, people are concerned about the postage stamp size lot, and also the fact that we can't get grants because we don't qualify for library grants, we don't qualify for senior grants because it's a multi-use. Has anyone kind of looked at like Memorial School? Because from what I understand, the whole top floor is vacant, so there's lots of space there. Would it make sense to get a grant to build a new school like on the Trask property and then use that and convert that to the senior center? You could put the Historic Society in there. You could put the cable access channel in there. You could put all these other functions in that building, have plenty of parking, have easy access because you have multiple driveways in, and it would at least put the building back to use, because right now you have a vacant upstairs that's being used for storage, from what I understand. So I don't know if anyone's considered that, but if we could get a grant for the school, that would solve a problem and at least bring the cost of the overall project down maybe.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea. I don't know if that's something that we could look into. My thinking off the top of my head is, I think it'd be very difficult to try to incorporate, a separate public entity within your school. I think it'd be a serious safety concern, would be my thinking.
Oh, no, like I'm saying, you'd have to build a different school somewhere, the right size, because I guess they were expecting an expansion of students when they built that school, and it's, from what I understand, it's half empty.
Okay,
So you have space that the town owns going to waste.
okay.
And if you get a grant, you can get grants for schools all the time. I mean, those are usually pretty plentiful, so it might be a way of funding a building and making use of a current building.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comment. I'm not sure I have the answer, but we'll see if we can ask.
Got to throw it out.
All right, thank you. Okay. Any other public comment? All right. I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second?
Make that unanimous action.